I'm still on body schema. My dogs didn't fight with that little dog, whose name was Henry, apparently. So where was I? Oh yeah, it's got its body schema. It's like a homunculus thing in the brain. So it kind of integrates all of the information from the sensors, all the information from the sensors inside the body, but presumably also the sensors that take in information from outside the body, so that there's that kind of body in the mind. And that body in the mind is constantly processing information from the outside world that comes through the brain, through the mind. So why was I talking about that? Well, I guess partly two things, I suppose. Partly, I don't think I meant to talk about this, but never mind. I think it's partly about abstract and conceptual thought. Certainly there seems to be some evidence that schematic forms of understanding, which are non-concrete, also seem to be presenting themselves to that body schema. So when I think of the word grasp, and I'm thinking about it in terms of understanding, like grasping an idea, I know there's good evidence to suggest that parts of the sensory cortex that would normally be about hands reaching forward and holding on to something are activated. So that body in the mind, that maybe that Penfield homunculus or maybe some other form of body schema, is kind of reaching out for something when I think about the word grasp, when I say the word grasp, or when I read the word grasp in a sentence, in that sense of it being referring to an act of understanding. So even there's no literal grasping going on in this lived experience, in the mind there is a grasping, and the body in the mind is undertaking that kind of a grasp. And presumably that goes across for all those other kinds of metaphorical actions that we use to do with force metaphors or to do with journey metaphors. Every time I use metaphors to do with journeys and courses and progress and proceedings and all those kind of words, assuming I'm using them correctly, the body and the mind, the image schema, is taking itself off for a walk through various ideas, passing idea landmarks, conceptual landmarks, to approach and ultimately, hopefully, arrive at a conceptual endpoint to that proceeding. So the body and the mind there is behaving like the real body in the physical world, but it's not simply doing it with representations of physical images. If that's the right way of thinking about it, it doesn't feel right. But it's also doing it with metaphorical interactions with conceptual content. What I wanted to try to get to here was to talk about performance and potential enhancement of performance, or whether there was whether these ideas suggested any kind of performance enhancement processes. I'm not sure if I can get there really right now. But one of the things I'm thinking in those kind of terms is that certainly when I'm another dog coming. Certainly when I'm thinking about performing an action, and the optimal performance of an action is going to be one that isn't it doesn't include lots of extraneous action, that doesn't bring in action from outside, that isn't wasteful, that's economical, where all the resources that are required for that action are fully mobilized, and there's no conflicting action trying to take place at the same time. So presumably performing some kind of an action, and that's actions by the real body, by the physical body. So presumably actions undertaken by the metaphorical body, this body schema, this Penfield homunculus, could similarly be optimized if they were not distributed across a series of possibly conflicting tasks. So if I'm trying to grasp an idea, it's probably helpful if that idea isn't slippery. Or if I'm trying to understand something, stand under something and support it, it's probably helpful if that isn't a really heavy idea. Or if I'm not called upon to grasp 3 things at once, given I've only got 2 hands. So there seems to be something to do there with the power of metaphor and the possible disabilities of mixing metaphors simultaneously, in terms of our ability to mobilize this homuncular body and the mind to carry out certain actions. That hasn't really said anything about performance, it's more about understanding. I'll have to come back to performance another time, I think.